Well, this is BBC News. I'm Regid Ahmed. The latest headlines. People living in low-lying parts of northeastern Australia are in lockdown as Cyclone Debbie sweeps across northern Queensland. And government forces in Iraq are intensifying their efforts to drive so-called Islamic State out of western Mosul. The campaign is raising further concerns about civilian casualties. Well, let's get more on that now. Amnesty International have released a report in which they say civilians have been killed by airstrikes in their homes after they were told not to flee Mosul. Well, Donatella Rivera is a senior crisis response advisor at Amnesty, and she joins me now from Turin. Donatella, thank you very much for your time. First of all, the US and the Iraqi government would argue that care is being taken to avoid civilian casualties. But what are you hearing about that? Because you're hearing something quite different.
Yes, I just returned from northern Iraq and specifically from Mosul last week. And what I found on the ground was family after family in East Mosul whose relatives were killed when their homes were bombed in coalition airstrikes. In many of these cases, ISIS fighters were on the roof of the houses or in the gardens or around the houses. However, the targeting of some ISIS individuals should not be done at the expense of killing entire families by bombing and completely destroying entire houses.
Donatella, this is the problem, though. This is a difficult battle. Essentially, it's street-to-street guerrilla warfare. Is it possible for Iraq and the coalition to fight this war without these kind of civilian casualties?
I don't think that we can be naive, and certainly Amnesty International is not pretending that urban warfare doesn't carry the danger that it does. And I think it would be extremely difficult to think of a warfare in a city the size of Mosul without any civilian casualties at all. The point that we're making is that not everything is allowed in war, and that the fact that ISIS uses civilians as human shields does not relieve the Iraqi forces or the coalition forces from their obligation under international law. Where all the feasible possible precautions taken to minimize civilian casualties, our findings show that no, there was more that could and should have been done, and that could and should be done right now, because fighting is still ongoing in Mosul and civilians are still being killed, and that there are steps that can be taken in terms of using more precise munitions with a smaller blast radius that cause less collateral damage. So it is not only possible, but absolutely necessary for coalition forces and Iraqi forces to take more precautions to minimize civilian casualties.
Donatella Rivera, a senior crisis response advisor at Amnesty, thank you very much for your time.